Mrs. MS Power?
We are to start?
We can start.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning in some places, distinguished guests, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our program today. My name is Renate Amesbauer. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm the president of the Women Federation in Austria and also part of the UN team. In Vienna, we have a UN team of the Women Federation at the UNO. And we're dealing there with topics of disarmament, drug and crime prevention. So now before we start, I have a few technical things that I would like to share with you. First, there will be translation in various languages. We will have translation from English to Korean, Japanese, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Chinese. So please choose this Dolmetsch globe on the right side of your screen for your language. And if you have questions, I'm sure you will have many questions during this coming up webinar. Please put the questions in the Q&A box. We will be checking there. You're very free to use the chat to communicate among each other, but for questions, please use Q&A box. We are very happy to welcome you to the webinar of the Women Federation for World Peace International with the topic on peace and reconciliation in conflict zones, hosted by the Women's Federation. It is a topic that is also very dear to my heart and to our work of Women's Federation in Austria. So now, today we will listen to 3 speakers. We will explore the challenges and victories of movements in conflict zones across the world to understand the capacity and challenges involved for women and youth when they take an active role in leading efforts for reconciliation and conflict transformation. Panelists will present the best practice successes and the decision-making processes that have contributed to effectively tackling the enormous crisis in diverse areas of different parts in the world. Now I would like the opportunity to introduce our panelists and ask them to share with us their thoughts and experiences on peace and reconciliation in conflict zones. We changed a little bit the row of speakers, so it is my pleasure to introduce as first speaker, Professor Silka Spahic-Siljak. Professor Siljak comes from Bosnia-Herzegovina. She has an FD in Gender Studies, an MA in Human Rights, and BA in Religious Studies. Her scope of work includes addressing cutting-edge issues involving human rights, politics, religion, education, and peace building, with more than 15 years of experience in academic teaching, work in governmental and non-governmental sectors. She runs a religious study program at the University of Sarajevo and was postdoctoral fellow at Harvard University and Stanford University in the USA. She teaches at the Faculty of Philosophy in London. She runs a transcultural psychosocial educational foundation, TPO, in Sarajevo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, her home, with a focus on gender equality, intercultural and interreligious education and peace building. So I'm very keen and I'm very happy we can listen now to Dr. Silka Spahic. And please, Dr. Spahic, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Renate, and thank you for your kind invitation to be part of this event and to share some of my thoughts and experiences. I would like to ask Mion to start my presentation. Thank you. At the beginning, I would like to explain the title, Making Women Count, Not Just Counting Them. Basically, I borrowed this title from one of the UN Women reports because it summarizes the essence of what we are talking about today. We are often in situation to count women in politics, decision-making positions, and in peace building. Numbers, of course, matter, and quantity is important to be able to derive quality from the pool. But mere presence of women in peace processes do not bring results. We need to have sensitized women for this process, women who will understand the situation, and women who will be accepted in broader social and political environment where they work. In this presentation, I will be speaking about Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Balkans region, and why it is important to have women in peace negotiations, but also to pay attention to impact they can have. Next. On this slide, for those of you who are not familiar with the region, this is the map of the Balkans, where you can see Bosnia and Herzegovina in the middle, and around it is Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro and other countries that were part of former Yugoslavia. So in this region, we had a terrible conflict, and I would like to ask next. And that terrible conflict started in 1991, and it was stopped in 1995 with the Dayton Peace Agreement. And as you can see in this photo, there are all men around the negotiation table. So women, we as women, usually set the table, clean the table, but we have neither the seat nor a say at the table. So that's a problem. In most peace negotiations, men have seats and they negotiate on behalf of other men and women. And it is not fair nor just. So we need to change that. Next. The question is why we need to involve women in all stages of peace process. Many students I've been working with often ask me why we need to speak about gender equality now, because women acquired civil and political rights. They now have access to education, workforce, and everything what they want. And why still we are talking about it? And also another question they pose, if men advocate for higher national goals, they can be equally good for all of us and advocate for all our goals. My answer always goes to say that in most of the cases, women are object of negotiations and their perspectives are not taken into account. So why involve women in all stages of peace process? I will just offer a few things. The first is the presence of women always make difference in terms of understanding of the roots of conflict and bringing practical matter on the table, especially in the fields of education, healthcare, social welfare, etc. Then higher level of gender equality brings lower level of conflict propensity. So ending war is just the beginning, while establishing social order, justice, equality, and society that function require to have dialogue, negotiations, and women need to be part of that in that process. Violence against women doesn't stop when we sign peace agreements. We know that the best in the post-war Bosnia and Herzegovina and the entire Balkans region, when thousands of wartime raped women had to come to their pre-war homes and meet war criminals working in state institutions, police, and as highly ranked politicians. So that's why it is not enough just to have a peace agreement. Then to have also a power in peace processes, it is important to have voices of women to be heard, and also to have impact in the process of peace building. So bottom-up approach is very important, and in my researches on women and peace building in this region concluded that women in local communities have done a great deal of peace in local communities. Women also are more concerned for family well-being. When we include them, they always have first in mind the benefit of their families and then broader communities. As primary caregivers, women are concerned about their families, but they also have impulse to their communities to grow. So many women we've been working on in this region started their small businesses, and they supported not only their families, but their local communities thrived. And of course, final argument is that we cannot have social justice in one society if we don't have gender justice. Next. When we see these numbers here, how many women are involved in peace negotiations, it seems really discouraging. Only 6% of women are engaged as mediators. And we know that in many cultures, women mediate conflicts in their families and local communities. Only 6% of women were among signatories of peace agreements because they are not counted. And they also do not count except in some cases. The percentage goes a bit up when women are engaged as negotiators, but 13% is still very low, knowing how much women can offer in negotiations. Obviously, there is not enough confidence in women's capacities and abilities to run negotiation processes. Finally, 7 out of 10 peace negotiations in 7 out of 10 women are left out. We are in 21st century. So many women are graduating from peace studies, international relations, and associated disciplines. They're among the best local peace builders, and yet they do not get a chance to get engaged as negotiators and mediators. Next. The Balkans region is situated in the fringes of Europe. It is between the Black and Mediterranean seas with proximity to the Middle East. So it is of geostrategic importance for advancement of interest of many big countries like Russia, Turkey, in East, and of course, USA and some Western European countries. This region, as I said, was in terrible war from 1991 to 1995 with genocide in Srebrenica, which is a big black spot in UN history. The region of Bosnia and Herzegovina is particularly ethnically divided. New generation of youth are raised in ethnically homogeneous communities. Nationalism is nurtured through local victim-perpetrator narratives. Economic instability is the result of ethnic division and lack of cooperation and, of course, corruption. People live in constant fear, and they are constantly reminded that peace will not last, and they are reminded that they can experience war again and again. And just these days, we are having in Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina politicians who are taking serious measures to finalize the secession of one part of the country, which is in Republic of Srpska. So big players, these big countries from the international community, have big impact in this region, and local population wait for them to find solution, while at the same time they are asking local population to resolve the conflict and new possible war. So when I look back in the last 25 years, next, what I can say that women invested in peace processes in local communities. They are managed to create networks of support for other women, children, and those who are very marginalized. And despite all that, all the achievements they acquired, they are mostly excluded from decision-making positions and peace negotiations. Men aggressively promote politics of ethnic division. Even some women politicians today assist them in the name of higher ethno-national goals. And another problem in this region is the brain drain of young people who are leaving mostly to Germany, Austria, and other Western European countries. Next. You see here at this slide that what is important and what matters is that women's voices are heard. It is important that we have formally counted, but most of the women who are even there at these positions are left out. They are standing alone, and which is not good. Next. And that's why I would like to propose 5 key steps that we should undertake to improve the situation in this region. The first one is diplomatic pressure of the European Union and the international community, which is very important because the destiny of the people in this region is not only the destiny of their own, they are part of the bigger political game. Then women in UN institutions also who have power there should advocate for women in this region, in Bosnia-Herzegovina and the entire Balkans region, and involve them in peace processes and make the politicians to involve more women around negotiation tables. Then economic support for women and families. Another important step is peace education. Because through peace education, we empower people to create their own history. And with the method of P4C, creative, collaborative, caring, and critical, we empowered a group of teachers in this region. And now this is the momentum to continue to move on with the curriculum reform. And that's why peace education is crucial. And we need to invest more in that. Because when young people feel that they are appreciated, they will do more than they are expected. And of course, we need to support participation of women at the decision-making position. So I'm moving to the end of my presentation, and I will just ask you to see the final slide where we can see the results we can have if we will follow the 5 key steps I proposed in this presentation. I would like to thank you for your attention and expecting questions from you later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Silja Spahic. It was a great presentation, and this was one of the reasons why I really was very keen on inviting you, because you are one of those voices from this area, and now today I think many people are listening, and so this was one step in the direction that you want to promote. I'm also hoping for the questions in the Q&A box for later on, Professor Silja. Professor Silja is in the middle of a conference, and therefore there was a little bit of noise around. Thank you for still coming, and you're staying with us to the end, yes, as much as possible. Yeah. Thank you very much. Now I would really very much like to move on to our next speaker, a very nice lady from Spain, Madame Silvia Escobar. Madame Escobar is the founder and first president of Amnesty International of Spain. She is a former director of social services at the Spanish Red Cross and former director of the Human Rights Office of the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. former Human Rights Ambassador of Spain. She is also designated Ambassador of Peace from the Women Federation in Spain. Madame Escobar, I'm very curious and very keen listening to you. So please, Madame Escobar, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much to the Women's Federation for World Peace and to Mrs. Marcia de Abreu for having invited me to participate in this webinar on peace and reconciliation in conflict zones, so much related to the 10 United Nations Security Council resolutions on the role of women in the prevention and resolution of conflicts. In 2007, as Spanish Ambassador for Human Rights, I addressed the Security Council during an open debate regarding women, peace and security. It was marking the anniversary of the historic resolution 1325. I then announced the adoption by Spain of a national action plan to implement the resolution. Spain has recently adopted a second action plan that runs until 2025, thus fulfilling two priorities in Spanish foreign policy: working for international peace and security and fighting gender discrimination. Security Council Resolution 1325 has served as a catalyst for women all over the world to mobilize their efforts to achieve equal participation in conflict prevention and resolution. Women at the grassroots level in countries as diverse as Afghanistan, Burundi, Colombia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Iraq, and Sudan have used this resolution to lobby for their voices to be heard in peace-building processes, in post-conflict elections, and in the rebuilding of their societies. Let's point out the example of Liberia, at war from 1989 to 1996 and from 1999 to 2003. The peace movement was led by the women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace, and it started by thousands of local women coming together to pray for peace. The peace process culminated in the end of war and the rise of Africa's first female head of state, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. In 2011, President Sirleaf was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize recognized women for their nonviolent struggle and for women's rights to full participation in peace-building work. Resolution 1325 frames the need for women's inclusion as a security issue and not only a rights-based issue. It does so by acknowledging that involving women in peace processes brings a more inclusive view, which is more likely to achieve sustainable peace and ensure agreements to hold. Women, as pointed out by Cassandra Shepard, have a more collaborating and compromising conflict management style than men that are usually more competing, meaning here satisfying one's own concern at the expense of another. Greater collaboration, on the other hand, produces more constructive outcomes for the disputing parties, and compromising behavior helps ensure lasting relationships. However, women are underrepresented and many times absent from peace negotiations. In spite of some positive examples, peace efforts do not include enough women. In the 31 major peace processes that occurred between 1992 and 2011, only 2% of the principal mediators were women. In the Afghan talks, women represented around 10% of negotiators. In Libya's political discussion, 20%. Among the negotiators in Libya's military talks, there were no women, and that was the case in Yemen's recent peace efforts. In spite of all the important resolutions adopted, in spite of recommendations and appeals by international bodies, and in spite of the pressure of non-governmental organizations, the world has so far failed to ensure full participation of women on an equal footing with men, both in conflict prevention and post-conflict peace building. Women are also often excluded from diplomatic initiatives aimed at ending armed conflicts, and that was the case in peace talks in Kosovo, the Southern Caucasus, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Conflicts can only be resolved through an inclusive process. Transformative change rarely comes from within the system. It comes from women's movements, local, grassroots, and youth movements. The involvement of civil society organizations makes a peace less likely to fail. Women, as we have seen, focus more on reconciliation, education, transitional justice, and economic development. In terms of assessing the peacefulness of a state, gender equality is one of the strongest indicators. While the significance of the unanimous approval of Resolution 1325 cannot be underestimated, its provisions need to be put into practice, as conflict continues to be a gendered activity. Before, during, and after conflicts, women and men have different access to resources, power, and decision-making. The experiences of women and men in situations of tension, war, and post-conflict reconstruction are therefore totally different. Furthermore, let us not forget that a tremendous quantity of women of today's civilian casualties, 20% of today's civilian casualties are women, and that 80% of all refugees and internally displaced persons worldwide are women and children. Women are thus caught in a vicious paradox. While they are the main civilian victims of conflict, they are powerless to prevent them. They are often excluded from the negotiations, and they are often confined to a very marginal role in the post-conflict reconstruction and reconciliation processes. It is also clear that empowering women in conflict situations would help prevent gender-based violence, rape, forced pregnancy, and sexual slavery. It would help bring the perpetrators of such crimes before justice. In order to achieve these goals, there are measures to be taken, both governmental and non-governmental. The Assembly of the Council of Europe not long ago called on the governments and parliaments of their member states to support women's participation in peace building and post-conflict reconstruction, suggesting not less than 28 different measures aimed at the prevention and resolution of conflicts. Among others, the Assembly stressed the need to strengthen women's representation in local, national, and international bodies for the resolution of conflicts. Other measures include to provide sustained funding to women's non-governmental organizations dealing with peace issues, to empower local women and women's groups in areas where conflict is brewing, and to support their strategies aimed at avoiding armed conflict, to take the necessary measures to train women as mediators, to be involved in peace missions, conflict resolution and peace support operations, to grant at least temporary refugee status to women who have been subjected to sexual violence in conflicts, to provide physical and mental health services for women recovering from war injuries and trauma. On the other hand, Emma Fearon, an English researcher and expert in international relations, has also given some positive examples, and I want to conclude with them. Norwegian Major Kristin Lund, who was appointed the first female to serve as a force commander in a UN peacekeeping operation in Cyprus in 2014, is a case in point. Stephanie Williams, a US diplomat, who was the former acting special representative of the UN Secretary General for Libya, aided on the peace process. Miriam Coronel Ferrer, a member of the UN standby team of senior mediation advisors, made history as the first ever female negotiator to sign a final peace accord with the rebel group, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front in the Philippines in March 2014. To conclude, let me remind that although the Women, Peace and Security agenda has transformative potential, a more comprehensive implementation is urgently required. This needs the involvement not only of parliaments and government, not only of women's groups, but of civil society in general. Let us not forget it. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and thank again to Women's Federation for World Peace for convening this meeting on such an important issue.
Thank you very much, Madame Escobar, for your elaborations. It was so learnative, so insightful, and you mentioned so many important points. Together with the previous speaker, I think the recommendations are immense. And also the point, it's not only, women are not only the victims. Sometimes I think we have to remind ourselves we are also the actors we are half of the population, we are half of the actors in the world. And also maybe the Women's Federation can help to bring forth your voices and bring forth your recommendations. We see ourselves at such an organization, among others. And so thank you very much for taking the time. And I'm actually waiting for some questions turning up in the Q&A. Until now, there was nothing in there. Please be reminded to prepare your questions for our Q&A session at the end. And now we want to turn to our third speaker, Dr. Antonieta Rosa Gomez. I hope she is here. I'm sure she's here. Yes, Dr. Antonieta Rosa Gomez. Dr. Gomez is a lawyer, writer, and poet. She is a researcher at the Center for International Studies in the field of institutions, governance, and international relations, security challenges, and was Professor Regent of Administrative Law at the Faculty of Law of Bissau. She was the first female candidate in the presidential elections of Guinea-Bissau and the whole of West Africa. Congratulations. She was Minister of Justice and Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Guinea-Bissau. She was Municipal Deputy of the Municipality of Sintra in Portugal. She is President of the Association of African Women for Research and Development. It sounds so important to me. Dr. Gomez will speak in Portuguese. She will give a presentation in Portuguese, so please, for all others, turn to the English interpretation channel so that you can listen to the interpretation. Dr. Gomez, I'm very curious. Thank you very much for being here. The floor is yours.
Ok, bom dia, ou não sei se é boa tarde lá, a todos e a todas. Aos primeiros fundadores da organização, na pessoa da doutora Hack e a Han Moon, também conhecida por a Mãe da Paz, começo por saudar. A presidente internacional da Federação das Mulheres para a Paz Mundial Internacional, doutora Júlia Moon, assim como a senhora secretária-geral Paris Moon. A nossa presidente nacional da Federação das Mulheres para a Paz Mundial de Portugal, doutora Marta de Carvalho. ilustres convidados, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, é com muita honra que aceitei este convite para vir falar de um tema muito interessante. E por ser lusófona, preferi apresentar esta minha comunicação também em português, diretamente em português. Participação das organizações femininas na construção da paz em Casamance. Tanto Casamance é uma região que fica no sul do Senegal, que é um país africano que fica na costa ocidental da África. A resolução 1325/2000 do Conselho de Segurança das Nações Unidas sobre as mulheres, a paz e a segurança sublinha a importância de promover e apoiar a paz e a segurança. Importância de promover e apoiar a participação das mulheres na construção da paz e na resolução de conflitos. Contudo, ainda existe fraca presença de mulheres nos processos de paz, como a mediação e negociação. A experiência da maioria das sociedades afetadas por conflitos demonstra que, apesar das mulheres serem vulneráveis à violência e exploração sexual, mas lutam sempre para manter a coesão familiar e das suas comunidades durante e após o conflito. Daí é reconhecido às mulheres um papel fundamental na promoção da paz. As organizações não governamentais femininas tiveram um papel e continuam tendo um papel importante na construção da paz em Casamance. Casamance é uma região que está confrontada com um conflito armado que iniciou desde 1982, já duram quase 40 anos, em que o movimento das forças democráticas de Casamance reivindica a independência dessa região. E é um movimento que foi liderado por um sacerdote, Agostinho de Amacon Senghor. É considerado este conflito de baixa intensidade, com períodos de confrontos e também períodos que os investigadores chamaram de nem guerra, nem paz. Mas, porém, já fez mais de 5.000 vítimas humanas e provocou deslocados, inclusive para a Guiné-Bissau e Gâmbia. O processo de construção da paz iniciou desde os anos de 1990. Teve vários intervenientes, vários também acordos de paz, mas até agora não tem paz definitiva em Casamance. Nas últimas 2 décadas, as organizações da sociedade civil em Casamance começaram a ser protagonistas de iniciativas de paz. Neste contexto, cerca de 200 organizações femininas uniram e formaram a Plataforma das Mulheres para a Paz em Casamance, em 2011, com a finalidade de acompanhar e apoiar as comunidades nos seus esforços de resiliência e desenvolver ações em favor da paz definitiva. Eu também, como mulher defensora da paz, dos direitos e de uma convivência pacífica das sociedades, apoiei e subscrevi a criação dessa plataforma para a paz. Nos últimos decênios, a muitos africanos justifica-se pela abertura política e social e com surgimentos de conflitos armados, as organizações femininas passaram a ter um papel relevante. Em Casamance, segundo a tradição cultural da etnia Jola, as mulheres são chave na reconciliação entre as partes e devem exercer esse papel com autonomia. A construção da paz abrange todas as ações destinadas a reforçar e a consolidar a própria paz, ou reduzir o risco de conflito. Enquadra-se por isso, no conceito de peace building, adotado pelas Nações Unidas. As mulheres em Casamance têm desenvolvido, nesse quadro, várias ações e iniciativas no âmbito das suas associações e no âmbito federativo. Por exemplo, as usanas são associações femininas religiosas que se organizaram em torno de sacerdotisas responsáveis de santuários e têm rezado pela paz. São as mulheres que eles chamam de bois sacré, que acreditam no poder místico contra as forças maléficas. A plataforma das Mulheres para a Paz em Casamansa conta atualmente com mais de 25 mil membros repartidos para 3 regiões diferentes em Casamansa, Ziguinchor, Sedió e Coldá. São de etnias e confissões religiosas diferentes, entre animistas, cristãs e muçulmanas. No seio da plataforma, existem associações como o Comitê Regional de Solidariedade das Mulheres para a Paz em Casamansa, designada do Soforá, que significa, em Diolá, ajudamos-nos, damos-nos a mão. E a Associação Regional das Mulheres para a Pesquisa da Paz, em Casamansa, também designada por Cabonquetur. Significa, em Diolá, etnia Diolá, perdoamos-nos. São formadas por mulheres casamancenses, essas organizações, que partilham a concepção moderna de construção da paz que passa pelo desenvolvimento. A Cabonquetur tem feito formação para reforço das capacidades das mulheres nos domínios de prevenção de conflitos e conciliação da paz e domínios econômico e dos direitos, e contribuiu para que as associações femininas fossem observadoras nas negociações para a paz entre o Estado senegalês e o movimento das forças democráticas de Casamansa. Ao Soforal, tem feito reforço das capacidades para a cultura da paz e resiliência das comunidades em Casamansa, capacitação econômica e social das mulheres e apoio à reconciliação e reintegração das populações que efetivamente estavam dispersas. Em Casamansa, 80% das atividades econômicas são realizadas por mulheres, que são grandes contribuintes para a redução da pobreza. Nas suas atividades para a construção da paz, as associações femininas têm sido apoiadas por parceiros internacionais presentes em Casamansa, nomeadamente as ONGs alemãs, americanas, francesas, espanhóis e suíças. O objetivo desta plataforma das Mulheres para a Paz em Casamansa é das mulheres falarem a uma só voz, apresentarem propostas que devem ser levadas em conta pelo Estado e pelo MFDC e envolvê-las na resolução do conflito, conforme a Resolução 1325/2000 das Nações Unidas. Em vários países confrontados e devastados por conflitos armados, as mulheres têm dado contributos para a construção da paz. Por exemplo, no Ruanda, as mulheres assumiram a liderança nos esforços de reconciliação a nível local e nacional. Em Nagaland, na Índia, as mulheres mediaram o conflito entre as partes e ajudaram o regresso de crianças soldados a Uganda. Na Albânia, por exemplo, as mulheres mobilizaram as comunidades rurais em torno de um programa muito relevante do PNUD, que era Armas para o Desenvolvimento, que incluía a recolha de armas ligeiras e o apoio às atividades de desenvolvimento local. Antes de terminar, também não podia deixar de fazer referência ao contributo relevante da Mãe da Paz, doutora Hak Moon, para a paz mundial e no seu próprio país, em Coreia, com os esforços através da Universal Peace Federation para a criação do Comitê Think Tank para a reconciliação das duas Coreias. Este é um papel muito relevante que nos orgulha a todos. Parabéns, Mãe da Paz. Em conclusão, quero deixar esta nota, que os conflitos influenciaram a transformação do papel tradicional das mulheres, que além de lutarem para manter a coesão das suas famílias, desenvolveram estratégias de sobrevivência e contributos para a paz. Portanto, as mulheres têm sempre e tiveram sempre um papel relevante na construção da paz e reconciliação entre os povos. Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gomez. This is an amazing speech and amazing research you brought. And when I listen to all three of you, how can the world be not at peace? Because there's so much work that is done by women. And I must really say my complete admiration, because I feel the more it's difficult for the women, the stronger they become. So I wish you a good progress. Now we could turn to the the Q&A session. It's time for this, because I say thank you very much, because all the speakers kept their time very well. So let's see what is there. I have a question to Professor Silka, because maybe she gets overwhelmed with noise around her in the future, because I know a little bit about her work. And it also would fit to Dr. Gomez. How much is peace building and related to the social aspect? Because you told us in another speech before that you somehow make it an obligation for people who get support to develop in the social aspect, that to somehow keep being involved in peace building. Because you said many times, peace is nothing. I think we all agree, peace is nothing that comes by itself, because overnight, peace can turn into a turmoil. So we keep all, this is the question I would like to pose to you, Dr. Silka.
Thank you, Renata. And I'm glad that you remember when we talked about it and how our connection and relation between economic empowerment and peace building is important. So one of the positive examples we managed to do in the Balkans region, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, is to connect different ethnic communities to collaborate together. So which means that women from majority of Bosniak Muslim, majority Serb Orthodox, and majority Croat Catholics received education and support to start their own local businesses, but in return, they had to be involved in peace processes in their local communities. And together with local authorities, municipality government, and higher level government, we managed to reduce taxes for the first 3 years of their businesses. And these communities thrived, which is a really good example. So that's why I said today in presentation, when we provide for women, they provide for family and local community. They give more. And that's why this example showed us and helped us to understand that we always have to connect peace with something which is palpable, economic empowerment. To be able to make a peace building story and peace building topic relevant to these people, we need to help them to raise their children, to provide for their families, and to preserve their dignities.
Thank you very much, Dr. Silka. Thank you very much for this profound answer, which also gives a pattern, again, a model to use, and maybe in also other places. And now I find a very interesting question, which I think really fits to you, Dr. Gomez, because you said something very important, that women, for me, it sounded very important, women gather together and pray, and they make sure that it's inclusive for all ethnic groups, all religious groups. And this creates an power, as according to your description. And here a gentleman is asking, he thinks religious beliefs have also silenced the voice of women in terms of peace-building activities, plus how can we overcome these religious dogmas to allow women to take the lead in peace and conflict areas? So what is your experience with these two sides of religion or religious belief or religious traditions. Dr. Gomez, you would like
Muito
to...
obrigada por esta pergunta muito interessante. É verdade que as crenças religiosas, às vezes, obstaculizam, aliás, não apoiam, mas agora eu penso que há várias crenças religiosas que têm mostrado um contributo para a paz. Em Casamansa, na verdade, há este grupo de mulheres, 200 organizações que se aglomeraram. Há também mulheres de várias confissões religiosas. Há animistas, há muçulmanas, há cristãs e há outras religiões, religiões em Casamansa. Todas congregaram no esforço comum para a paz, porque a religião é uma forma, através da religião pode-se mobilizar as pessoas para a paz, os crentes. E quando eu falei do poder místico, a religião também entra nesse contexto, porque nós, no contexto da religião, Deus é invisível, mas acreditamos nele. E através dessas crenças religiosas, podemos levar o nosso contributo para a paz. E isto aí tem sido provado em Casamansa, inclusive a própria igreja, o papel da igreja, a igreja teve um papel importante nas ações de sensibilização das organizações para uma cultura da paz. Isso é importante. Os sacerdotes tiveram um papel muito, inclusive criou-se uma espécie de clérigo para um comitê, para efetivamente ajudar a conciliação entre os casamancenses e o próprio Estado no Senegal. Portanto, a religião deve ter esse papel positivo, ser, portanto, também nos processos de conciliação e construção da paz. Esse é um caso de Casamansa que eu acho que em outras partes, e aqui mesmo no nosso seio, eu penso que a Maimun tem dado um exemplo fantástico nas suas providências, no seu engajamento no contributo para a paz. Então, isso que eu tinha a dizer.
Thank you very much for your answer. And maybe always it's a process. It doesn't happen at once. It's always a process. Now, I would very much like to ask Madame Escobar and draw on her experiences. Again, it's voiced that how is your feeling? What would be your answer to these women in one hand and women's strengths, and on the other side, the position of religious dogmas? This person is even mentioning Afghanistan, which is a very, very sad point at that moment. What would be your advice, Madame Escobar?
Well, I think that all this issue, all this agenda that we're discussing now has to do with other agendas, very important agendas, sustainable development, the goals of the 2030 agenda, etc. As regards religion, I think it's a very positive way of strengthening the fight of women, but it can be also, I know, sometimes a setback. You know, the most important thing is to remember that all the things that we are discussing now, gender equality, we are discussing a human rights issue. So I think that if we keep in mind that the most important thing is to respect human rights, we will not forget the essential things.
Thank you very much for your answer to Madame Escobar. Is there maybe a question among the panelists? Would you like to raise a question to one of your colleagues? Then otherwise, I have another question from maybe a lady. She says also she's so much admiring all the work that is done on peace building. and of women by the women themselves, and how not so far it got until now. And she asks, what advice would you give to a normal woman? How can we contribute to build better peace? So I asked maybe this question to all of you. Who wants to answer first? Maybe Dr. Celiak again?
I hope you can hear me. My connection is unstable. That's why I turned off my camera.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to the previous discussion that religion is really important to peace building, and that women are very active in their religious communities for peace building. But what I would like to emphasize is that women also have to be equally represented in the process of interpretation of religious traditions, how we perceive our roles, and also the role of our religions in our communities. Most of the knowledge in our religious traditions are conveyed through the lenses of men. So that's why women need to be part of these processes in the creation of interpretations. And I see that when they are part of it, that we have more inclusive, more open approaches, not only to peace building, but to other very important questions we are facing in everyday life.
Thank you very much, Dr. Celiak. This sounds very good. Yeah, very, very constructive again. So maybe, may I ask this question also to Dr. Gomez? What can a normal woman, what a normal woman without any special, being on a special position, contributes to peace in the family community? What would be your advice? I think also it is like our final round.
Eu penso que a mulher sempre tem um papel a começar na própria sua família, como disse. Isso é importante, termos a cultura da paz, porque a mulher é mãe. E a mulher, o sentimento da mãe é sempre um sentimento de... pronto, é um sentimento que é diferente de ser masculino. Tem a nossa sensibilidade como mulher e como mãe é diferente. Tem sempre um papel conciliador, e esse papel conciliador começa na família e vai para a sociedade. E na sociedade, daí que nós podemos ser pilar nas nossas ações na construção da paz, através da defesa dos direitos humanos, através, inclusive, mesmo no nosso seio no seio da família, ajudar a harmonia familiar. Isso é também um contributo para a paz, porque temos que ter a nossa paz interna e a nossa paz para poder externamente ajudar essa construção da paz. Isso é muito importante para a família e para a própria sociedade. Daí que, mesmo individualmente, nós podemos dar o nosso contributo para a paz. E em várias organizações, por exemplo, nós estamos aqui na Federação das Mulheres para a Paz Mundial Internacional. Nós contribuímos com as nossas posições, com os nossos discursos. Também é importante o que nós produzimos para as comunidades ouvirem. É uma forma de sensibilizar. E eu acho isso muito importante, cada um pode fazer. Além de que nas nossas comunidades temos também um papel, a mulher sempre tem um papel de ajudar a resiliência das comunidades. Aquele papel... Aqui dei alguns exemplos, isso é muito importante. Portanto, eu penso que o papel da mulher é incontornável na construção da paz e conciliação.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gomez. Thank you very much. Maybe I want to add and emphasize this point, the woman in the family, because I have children myself, they're grown up now, and I always felt very strongly it's so important how do I feel and think about something, How do I feel and think about other people without even having said a word? Because I felt the way I am, it's just really the children feel, how does mama think about it? How does she think? What would she say? And so as a woman, I think we always have a very important role here. Thank you very much for your comment. And now I would very much like to ask Madame Escobar, what would you be your final advice in this connection?
Regarding women and the role of women in peace, not only in conflict areas, you stress the point that it's very important to fix intergenerational relations. And I think that women should, of course, start by fighting exclusion in all fields, in all areas, and bring about true equality between men and women. That's very important. Not forgetting that men have to join in the fight all the time. We have to fight to remember them, that they have to join in the fight, that it is a fight for humanity and not just only for women. And we have, of course, to do, as I say, the other things that we are meant to do: tackle climate change, work for human rights, etc. But I think that Dr. Gomez was very right in pointing out the example of the Women's Federation for World Peace. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame Escobar. And actually, this was one of my questions, but there were so many others. How can we be more inclusive with the men, with the husbands, with brothers, friends, and colleagues? Yes. Because I think in the end, what makes human beings happy, it makes all of us happy. When something is going wrong way, for whatever reasons, no one is happy. And if it goes the right way, then women and men are much more happy if we can live up to maybe what we can call live from the heart, live from your inner self. And maybe sometimes I think women can encourage, we are there to encourage to live by what we feel is right and true on the spot, because we cannot read books before we tell our children what to do next. We have to train ourselves to be connected with our Creator. Yeah? And I think we can encourage the world, and we can encourage the men to also start more listening to their inner self. And I think this would guide them the right way, or will guide them, or does guide them the right way, because there is much movement also from the side of men. Maybe the next conference, we should really make this a point, would be my suggestion, to ask the men how they can come into a new spirit or into new awareness of the world. Yeah, this is 1 hour is gone, and I think now we would be ready to discuss for another hour. It would be so nice to sit together for a coffee and cake, or for a lunch, because maybe you didn't have lunch yet, some of us. But I want to thank all of you who have been here, all the speakers. This was so much wisdom. This was so much value, and so precious words that you gave to us. It is all recorded. So we will share a recording later on, and also we will have reports. So you can share with your friends and colleagues and encourage them to participate next time. And Women's Federation offers a network. So please stay in contact with us. If we hold hands together, we will bring this world to become a beautiful world. I'm very sure about that. Thank you for all the participants who took the time to join at a more or less convenient or not so convenient time, depending where you live. But we managed from east to west of the world to make it somehow in daytime, early morning, late evening, or lunchtime. So thank you very much. And we wish you a nice time before Christmas, a beautiful season towards Christmas time. Somehow everybody joins in this season before Christmas time, if they are Christian or Muslim or other religious backgrounds. I think everybody likes this time of the end of the year.
Thank you to everyone.
And because in German we say besinnlich, to be more time to gain your thoughts again and gain new energy for the next year. Thank you very much for your participation. And thank you, Dr. Paris Moon, and thank you, Mion, for helping us through this webinar. Good night, good evening, good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.